Welcome to the Sound of Movement podcast. Today we are continuing our talks around exercise habits and routines. I'm going to be diving deep into why people get mediocre results when they don't build a balanced foundation. This is something that we see so many people get wrong, and we want to make sure you don't fall into the trap.
Good morning, everybody. In case we haven't met, my name is Yani Bormeister, and I am graced with a new, very attractive face today around the table. We are going to welcome our brand new gym manager here from Unity Gym, Will. And we've also got Rad and Phil. We've got the full tribe. We've got Richie, the voice of God. Yeah, it's a full table. First time. I think this is the first time we've done a podcast with a full table. Anyway, very quickly, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to everyone watching the replay on YouTube. Smash that like button. It does support the channel. Also want to send some love to those of you listening to the podcast. If you guys haven't already, if you're on the podcast or on the YouTube channel and you haven't already got over to the UMS Movement Mastermind private Facebook group, get yourself over there. What are you doing? It is an awesome tribe of people. And with that, I'd like to welcome everyone joining us live, watching the live stream to the UMS Movement Mastermind Facebook group. Let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from, and we want to know also if you have ever found that you've hit some sort of a plateau or a roadblock due to a structural imbalance in your body. Question of the day. Have you ever plateaued due to a structural imbalance? Obviously, you would have to have been aware of it or had a great coach that had pointed that out to you. But if you have, let us know. We want to know in the comments section. You can also let us know on YouTube. How is everyone?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yep, happy days. I'm back in my happy seat after a few months away.
Feels personally, privately devastated that he's lost the front row.
Nah, yeah, for those in the podcast, there's a lot of seat wars about, who sits where. So
yeah. How are you, Will?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Very happy to be here.
Yeah. That is a voice for radio.
Mate, I was just going to say, yeah.
It matches the face for radio, so that's all right.
So as we shared today, this is a very important topic. Very important topic. Tomorrow we're going to talk about how balance improves performance. Today we're going to talk about how imbalance impairs performance and your body. And we're going to talk a little bit about, we're starting with the risk of compromise with a structural imbalance in a joint. And then we're going to go a bit macro and talk about how balance training models and balance training routines improve efficiency, and then on a macro level improve the results that people get, because it's very, very important, and it's something that we've built our whole program around here at Unity Gym. So first of all, I'm going to throw this over to Phil, and we're going to talk about joint glide.
Yeah, well, I think that the first place to start is thinking about muscles and joints, the whole body as systems, because it can be very tempting when you are learning about anatomy to learn, one muscle here and muscle there, and you get like their pure actions, which are, your bicep, it might be elbow flexion, shoulder flexion, and supination, and you kind of think about the bicep in that context. But that doesn't really help you understand how it all works together within a larger system. So when you think about the shoulder girdle, so your scapula, your humerus, and your collarbone, like you really got to start to realize how there's just so much going on there all at once, and to be able to do something like produce force overhead and a tennis serve, or to be able to do a bench press without like that shoulder and that shoulder can still handle it, like that's a pretty amazing feat. So when thinking about joint systems, that's how we can really nail the balance in the system. If you're just in a bodybuilding context doing one muscle at a time, like training each of those isolated movements, like if you're just there doing bicep curls, you're never going to then develop a healthy shoulder system that's good with functional movements like a pull-up. So yep. That's kind of the first place to start, I think, is by understanding systems, we can then understand how to build balance systems.
Yep.
And with your original question of joint glide, so what happens there is if you think about, this is a really common thing that I see patients coming in for physio is they're doing something like bench press or push-ups, and they get that like real sharp shoulder pain right at the front of the shoulder that just every time they push it's a very distinct point just there, and so it's tempting to kind of get in there and massage it, and people get those Theraguns and just smash it. But what's actually happening there is that's the bicep tendon acting as a kind of passive barrier for the shoulder, because you need something to keep that fairly inherently unstable joint together, so that bicep if you don't have active structures really playing their role. So that bicep tendon acts as like a physical barrier at the front, and if ideally we never get that aggravated because our rotator cuff is going to be stopping anterior glide. So it's just to simplify that, so the rotator cuff is basically there to try and limit glide in the joint from big powerful muscles that would otherwise pull
them out of the joint, pull them out of alignment. Yep.
Yeah.
So you've got these two structures in the body. In just about every joint, you've got a structure that's trying to sort of work to locate and stabilize the joint, and you've got structures that are moving, creating movement.
Yeah, so you kind of think about like prime movers. So for example, in a bench press, you'll have your pecs, which are, if you just had a skeleton that didn't have anything else attached and you had your pec contract, you'd get flexion up to 90 degrees with your shoulder, you'd get a bit of horizontal adduction and internal rotation, and if you just had your skeleton there with a pec, you'd then also anteriorly dislocate your shoulder as soon as you contracted your pec. But fortunately, we have all these muscles and structures in our body that can dynamically move the system while keeping everything stable. And so while your pec is contracting to do the push, you've also got your rotator cuff stopping that anterior glide, stopping that anterior dislocation, and then that will also stop that bicep aggravation. Yep.
So that's the first and most obvious need for balance, and we call it structural balance or structural imbalances in the body, is to balance the joints, both the prime movers and the stabilizers. And now the second way that we like to really focus on balance in our training is for the efficiency model that I mentioned. And I'm going to throw this over to Will, because Will has most recently experienced the UMS for the first time, because he's trained with us before he started to be employed here. Part of we call it the gauntlet, is that we make our team do the program for a while and experience the program as a client. And you've been training for about 10 months, right? And
about 8 months.
About 8 months.
8 months, yeah. And prior to that, Will's got a lot of experience training himself. He was a personal trainer for 10 years, decade, yep, at one of the big gyms here. So how have you found the concept of, you obviously would notice, and I've been following your Facebook posts along the way about how it's been, in many ways you sort of dialed down what you'd done in the past, but just focused on really balancing everything out, and you've found that that's made you feel pretty good, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess a bit of background in my training, I was a big runner as a kid, which doesn't require a great range of motion, so I got very tight, and then as a younger personal trainer, the ego was always driving the sessions, and it was the heaviest weight possible without the best form, without the greatest range. And now starting to the 30s, I've found how valuable that balance between the muscle groups can be, and just how much better it makes you feel while training.
Yep. Also you touched on there on a flexibility level, because you were quite stiff before coming. How's that felt, working a lot more on a balance between strength and flexibility?
Yeah, really educational more than anything. It's helped a lot, I believe, with the performance throughout and how sore I get afterwards, and just that greater range. And I feel like I'm achieving more each session with that extra inch of depth rather than adding an extra kilo. So very satisfying. Yeah, yeah.
And the next example that we can use, and this is where I want to bring Rad into the discussion, is that you last year, I think it was last year or the year before, Rad experienced a couple of pretty nasty shoulder injuries, and we sort of started to play around with why that was going on. And Rad, due to his martial arts background and the way he's trained in the past, has had much stronger sort of back muscles than chest muscles, and much stronger arm, like tricep, and shoulder than pecs and stabilizers. And so last year he sort of doubled down on bringing up the muscles that were out of balance, primarily his pecs, just focusing on really dialing in really good form bench press, building strength in that, and building some muscle in the front of his shoulder to sort of balance everything out. And how's that worked out for you, Rad?
Well, amazingly.
Other than how just amazing you look now.
Yeah, look, it was a Yeah, it's been a big, long journey for me to really wrap my head around the importance of it, and because for me, I always associated training with the intention to build a particular muscle group up as just bodybuilding and around vanity, and I just had no interest in it whatsoever. But after getting two really bad shoulder injuries, slap tears on both shoulders, from one slap tear and then 12 months later another slap tear in the other shoulder, it made me realize just how important, creating this balance between, I was already working in a balance between push and pull and left to right and flexibility and strength, but never between muscular size, muscular hypertrophy. I just always just associated that with bodybuilding and something that I wasn't interested in. And it caused me to change my training, and it's had a massive impact.
Yeah.
And I'm not training like that anymore now. I did that for the better part of last year. So I'd say a good 8 to 10 months of last year I did that. But because I've developed a baseline level of hypertrophy in my chest now, whenever I do pushing movements, I feel the fatigue in my chest, whereas I never used to. I always used to feel it in my shoulders. So I've obviously retrained my body on how to use the systems and how to recruit the muscles more efficiently and more effectively, because I never used to get that. So now even when I'm doing, like, all my training at the moment is around calisthenics, and when I do the calisthenics movements, I really feel it in my pecs. I feel those muscles really engaging, which is a really new thing for me and a really positive sign. And I can even feel that I'm still getting hypertrophy from the exercises that I'm doing now, where I never, in the pecs I'm talking about, where I never used to get that before.
Yeah.
It didn't matter how hard or how heavy or how much I trained, my shoulders would just hypertrophy and my pecs would never go anywhere. So yeah.
And I think in the context of having slap tears, and just to be clear about what a slap tear is, within your shoulder, in the joint itself, you've got a cartilage sort of disc in there that just helps with adding a bit more sort of surface area of attachment. And at the top of there, you've got your bicep attachment coming off. One of the bicep attachments coming through there. So when you think about that cartilage sort of disc, that's a passive structure. And so when we're talking about joint glide before, I guess when you can minimize joint glide, then you minimize the need for the passive structures to act as like physical barriers. So if you have really strong and balanced active structures, then even if you do have like old, passive injury, like I have a similar thing where I tore my labrum in 2012, and I noticed that, if I'm not able to get in the gym and do sort of balanced training, then shoulder gets sore. If I am doing training, shoulder's totally fine. And so I think it's just a really good example with, having seen you go through those two injuries, and now just looking at the crazy shit you do with your upper body, it's like a real testament to just how effective having like the focus on a balanced and strong like active structures.
Yeah, it is. And when you think about what, like, my understanding of a slap tear before I'd had it, and definitely my experience of the feeling of how restricted I was when I got it, is that the slap tear is really like almost like a game over moment for a lot of people. And, you helped me so much with my understanding of what I needed to do for my rehab through that process. But yeah, to come back to this point now where the volume that I'm doing, like what we were talking about yesterday, of handstands and calisthenics work at the moment, and to be able to do that 6 days a week, every week, it's a real testament to the way that we train and this idea of structural balance.
Yeah, and just, look, the obvious, and where I want to end the discussion is the concept of balance between strength and flexibility and fitness as well, because that's really important too. But on a personal level, I experienced a real limitation in my body's ability from training in an imbalanced manner, and that was what I guess birthed the idea of continually assessing your strength and flexibility, and at least for me, and then designing workouts, programs and routines that are continually iterating on your weak links and making sure that you're constantly training for a balance. And I adopted originally the structural balance thesis from Charles Poliquin, the late Charles Poliquin, and then from that we sort of revisited it with Tony Battaji and his through his courses and his mentorship, and then iterated both of those theories for what we do here at Unity Gym. And that is, once you pass through our foundations program and our technique optimizer program, that is the way we train. We continually assess every 6 weeks. We figure out where there are imbalances starting to occur, and then we just double down on those areas of the body so that we're continually training in a way where we're not deviating too far off the course. And it's we're not trying to create a perfect body or anything like that. I don't believe there ever is. And the body's amazing at working around. The body is incredibly efficient at working around your imbalances and figuring things out for itself. But where you start to hit real bad plateaus is when you start to really ask a lot of it. And for me, it was when I was boxing quite heavily, and when I started gym training, and I started gym training to increase my muscle mass because I was so skinny. The problem was I just paired up with the friend who knew the most or had been training in the gym for the longest for about 3 years. And we did biceps, chest, and lat pull down every day. That was it. We did that 4 days a week. So I built a really big chest, really big biceps, and some lats. But all three of those big, powerful muscle systems work to internally rotate the shoulder, and what I found was that really started to affect my ability to box, and eventually I had a really bad tricep tear where I sort of had an air swing and missed the guy I was trying to punch, and it tore my tricep really badly, and it was an injury that took years to sort of fix. And
just to be the resident anatomy nerd for those playing at home, the bicep doesn't actually internally rotate the shoulder, but it is part of that.
It is part of the system. Yeah.
Just I know you get angry emails otherwise.
And so, yeah, look, and that was the interesting thing, which really changed the game for me as a personal trainer many years ago. This is going back about 16 years. That I realised that the majority of people train really with a really bad sort of direction. They just train to do what they either see in the mirror or what their friends do. They don't. There's
just been away for 2 months in very rural outback Australia and going to a gym there. I've just been so spoilt here for so long that I forgot.
You forget. I mean, and you would know because you worked at Fitness First for a long time, which is where I was working at the time. And there is very few people, even the trainers, who have a system where they're figuring out what people actually need. They just do. In my experience, working in a big chain gym like that, the majority of trainers just train their clients the way they train. And people will work with someone because they see you and go, oh, I want to emulate how you look or how you perform. So then it's quite easy because you just go, all right, we'll do my program. So I
totally relate. I remember when I started becoming gym curious and going and putting headphones on and trying to avoid eye contact but watch what other people are doing. Get on the machines that didn't look too scary and then just do those few machines that you'd figured out, and that was basically it.
And that's the next thing that we do. We just do what we're good at. So once we start to become familiar with something, for me it was bicep curls, lat pull down, and a chest press machine. It wasn't even a bench press. We used to use those chest press machines. I got good at those. I felt good. I started to see the weight stacks go up, and so we did more of those things. And then you just make the problem worse and worse and worse, and so it just it's really quite it surprised me, and then it made me a bit of an outlier when I was working in the gym, which was great because it made me quite successful when I started to adopt these systems that we did not create. We just adopted ourselves and iterated on, where we assess people and we figure out what their body actually needs to improve their performance or reduce their risk of injury, and then build programs around that.
All we did was took other people's stuff and made it better. But I've got something that I want to add to that, because for me, 5 years ago, when I decided that I wanted to start learning calisthenics and I was assessing myself, not knowing what I know now, I wish I had coaches like us 5 years ago. But
it's a great comment here from Adam.
Yeah, Potts, I know. We'll get to that in a sec. But my assessment of myself was that I was not flexible enough, and that's what started my obsession with flexibility, because I just wasn't flexible, and none of us were stretching back then at all. And I was starting to try these calisthenics movements and some acrobatic movements, and I could just feel that my body just couldn't get there. And the more I researched, the more you hear these gymnastics coaches talking about why you can't ever do the things you want if you're not flexible enough. And so I really went down this rabbit hole of flexibility. But then later on, I became quite a flexible person now. But then I injured my shoulders because I hadn't built balance within strength within my shoulders. And so if I knew what I know now, I wouldn't have just doubled down on flexibility. I would have balanced strength and flexibility and built them both up together, because I got flexible and then I started to try to express strength through calisthenics, and I injured my shoulders. And if I had
human nature, hey, like
Yeah,
it's
it's-
so tempting to just be all about specificity, and you start, like, the more you do one thing, you get fast results.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
The more you
And
run
I
away
started
from
to
something
feel
else.
how the flexibility was making all these things
Yeah.
easier to do, and so I wanted to go further and further. And it's funny now I definitely train in much more of a balanced way, and I'm not doing nearly as much flexibility training as I used to do, but I'm absolutely doing enough to maintain what I've got and even still see progress. But I'm training in a much more balanced way, a balance between strength
Yeah.
and flexibility.
And well, look, the results that it produces are obvious, and it's why we have adopted this model now between a 1-to-1 ratio of strength and flexibility in everything that we do, not just the UMS. We do it in our at-home workouts, and that was one of the big revelations for a lot of people who participated in our at-home workouts during the COVID lockdown. For a lot of people, it was the first time they'd ever mixed stretching and flexibility training within their workout. And then people were getting incredible results and getting this transformative experience and going, well, why is this so good? Why is this working so well? And all it does is increase the efficiency model, But there's a couple of things that you hack into when you do that, because your central nervous system is fatigued, and the role of the central nervous system in increasing flexibility is very big. So when you can sort of fatigue the nervous system and delay the inhibitor response in a stretch, you get quicker results. You get a more instant result. You also are warm, so your body's warm and it's in a very good state to stretch. And there are a couple of really important rules that we apply, things that ensure that we're not sort of inhibiting strength and stuff like that. But it really, really does produce an incredible result. So you've got the stability factor, you've got the joint glide and stability factor, you've got the efficiency model, and then you've also got the fact that, when you're assessing and training to balance your body, you dramatically reduce your risk of injury, which is something that I experienced firsthand. It's something that Rad's experienced firsthand. I think Phil's had an experience. I think Richard's had an experience. I'm sure if we looked at Will's training history, he's had an experience there. So there's 3 very, very strong reasons why imbalances produce mediocre results, and it's not just.
Yeah, I think with Will and his, the running background, like it's so common in team sports backgrounds, which is where I come from, and with runners that I work with, it's just like runners just run and don't do anything else. And it's been great with Tom DeCanto, who came on the podcast recently. He's one of the top runners in Australia, who, now he's kind of getting to the point where he's finally figured out that like strength training is an essential part of his performance, and he's just been getting better and better, even though he's getting on a bit older.
I want to just talk about Aidan Potts' comment here, because it was really funny when Rad and I first started working quite early on with one of our mentors, Tony Battaji, who's a fantastic personal trainer, and he excuse me, he was the one that really solidified for me the need for these structural balance assessments and to use it as a tool to design personalised programs for everyone, so that they're continually overcoming their weakest links and perfecting their body, perfecting their performance, perfecting their ability to move, to produce strength and things like that. And when we went to do one of his workshops, we all did the strength testing protocol, and I don't think anybody passed the overhead press. I remember it was the one thing that I was so out of balance with. I couldn't even do one repetition at my recommended weight based on my bench press, and I was quite shocked, But then I watched the other day when we did our strength test at the end of the year in 2020 with our tribe here, and I don't think many people failed the overhead press. And this is what Aidan's saying here. Shoulder press was his imbalance. I could not overhead press over 95 pounds comfortably due to shoulder injury that I didn't rehab properly, and then my vertical pressing was brutal in comparison to my horizontal, probably a factor that caused the injury in the first place. Now I can do over 160 pounds. God, I love the UMS. And I'm going to smash the like
kilos
on
to
that.
72 kilos.
Yeah. And Aidan, it was exactly the same. Excuse me. It was exactly the same for us. It was just one of those overlooked movements, when you don't understand that there is meant to be a relationship between your overhead pressing and your horizontal pressing and your horizontal pulling and your overhead pulling and things like that. you just overlook it and you neglect it, and you tend to choose movements that you're either A, really good at already, you're really proficient in, or that your friends tell you to do because it's what they're doing and they want a spotter for the day, It's hilarious. Want to just give a couple of shout outs here. Alex Taylor, welcome. Actually catching a live show, and he's wishing us all a happy new year. We've also got Tim Hughes, who's commented here. Let us know who you are, where you're watching from, guys. We'll send you some love. Tim's saying, can't do squats without injuring myself due to a poor posture caused by weak right knee and poor ankle mobility. Just started foundations phase 1 and likely the focus on the fundamentals. Just keep working on it nice and slowly, Tim. Remember, it's all about building your load capacity. Most injuries come from just a little bit of mismanagement of load.
Yeah, and Tim, I think if you could send me a video of your squats, I'd love to help you out a bit, because a lot of the time people don't quite understand with squats that not all squats are equal, and that there's a difference between a front squat, a back squat, and a high bar and a low bar squat, and you can do quite different movements. And the reason why you do these different movements is it works different parts of the system, as we were talking about with the shoulders. Just like the shoulder, your hips, knees, and ankles will be loaded differently, and with those different types of squats. So maybe send me a video of what you're doing, and I'll see if I can help you out by maybe. Often, if you have poor ankle mobility, then a low bar back squat is an easier way into squatting. So give that a go. Send it through.
I just realised that Phil missed the whole debate, or the Kelly Starrett debate at the end of 2020. You would have loved that. We had a proponent of the Kelly Starrett theory of every squat should look exactly the same with feet parallel, and that there should be absolutely zero movement anywhere in the body.
No butt wink at all. Zero butt wink. All of that,
and they were trying to encourage us to rethink our strategies and things like that, because they just read the Supple Leopard, obviously, and I was like, oh God, Phil would have loved that discussion. But anyway, I don't want to go out on the reeds on that one.
Yeah, it's just, anyone who just is like, you have to do it this way, it's just like, well, you're not really thinking about context.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway,
so that's a really good bit of feedback for you, Tim, with your squat. And the other thing is, as you're learning and you're building your low capacity, you're saying you keep injuring yourself. You may be trying to push something that's just not meant to happen yet. You might not, your body might not be ready to deep squat, so you might just need to shorten the range. You're still going to get muscle activation and recruitment, but you just might be pushing things that aren't quite ready yet.
As a follower of the show, he's got the right idea, and he's doing the foundations phase 1. So that's really good.
Perfect. Well, guys, look, tomorrow we are going to go deep on how balance improves performance. Now, I'm sure some of you have had some hints in today's discussion, but we want to talk deeper about it because it's very, very important. It's one of the keys to the UMS program that we're constantly pursuing, this notion of balance, balance in the format of training, strength, flexibility, and fitness. And we're going to sort of reveal some of how we do that. We're going to also start to talk about how, when we remove the inhibition or the glide or the joint instability, it really opens the body up to develop strength and flexibility much, much better. We're going to talk about how developing end range strength in flexibility improves your performance immensely, and share some stories about yogis, like really, really flexible people who come to Unity Gym to get to the next level, to become masters at their practice because they lack that end range strength in their discipline, and that's something that is quite inspiring to watch happen as well. People who have been doing yoga for 20 years plus, who have just hit a plateau and can't quite get to that mastery level, and when we double down on building strength in their bodies, they become more flexible. Very, very interesting. So we'll go deep into that, and we're also, one of the things that I would challenge you to do, if you want to see how this works, we've had a lot of people say, can you do a YouTube? We had a great comment recently asking if we could do I'm going to read it just so that I don't mess this up.
Oh, look out.
Where's my email? Okay, it came through an email. And we'll probably do a YouTube for this. This guy says, love your content, guys. Been doing calisthenics and gymnastic strength training since a few months quite seriously, and also want to focus on my mobility and flexibility since I played soccer for a long time. So my question is, can you guys do a video on how to program flexibility, mobility and strength training? Just some things to consider while making your own program. Thanks a lot in advance and keep up the good work. I would challenge anyone who wants to see how we do it to go and watch our at-home workouts. That is the best example of how we put a workout together that is balanced in strength, flexibility, and fitness and mobility.
If you want to
because
see,
it shows the warm up, it shows the cool down, it shows the composite of a 1-to-1 ratio of strength and flexibility within the workout,
and it shows cardio as well.
And it shows cardio as well. And we
supplementary
do have a few of those workouts still up on the.
We have
follow
peak
alongs.
Week of phase 3.
Peak
is
week of
still up on
phase 3
YouTube.
is on YouTube. Yeah, and if you guys yell loud enough in the comments section and in the UMS Movement Mastermind, maybe we'll do a flash sale for the at-home workouts, and you guys can kick the year off by having a look at that. But it's just a really great example of how we put it all together into a workout, and there are those workout examples up on the YouTube channel. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us, Will.
No, thank you for having me.
Welcome to the Unity Gym tribe, the table.
What have I got myself into?
The not so round table. That's exactly right. Thanks, Rad. Thanks, Phil, and thanks, Richie,
for doing, just sitting there and being sexy,
doing the lights and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, you got knocked off the mic. Sorry, Rich.
All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. We're talking performance. Have a fantastic day. Oh, hang on, Alex Taylor, hot off the press, managed to restore pain-free movement to one of the final remaking sections of my lower back issue in the past few days with some spine circles. Awesome. Fantastic. That is great to hear. I'm going to hit the like on that one as well. We'll see you all tomorrow. Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, it's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's
far.
the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.